Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And the Giants are building their offensive line. Free agency kicked off, kind of slow. Giants players are signing elsewhere. Austin Johnson, Keon Crossan, and Evan Ingram. And the Giants have signed offensive lineman Mark Glowinski and Jon Feliciano to their team, which is the biggest need for this Giants team, even though there's a lot of needs. Justin, how you feeling after day one of free agency?
Bobby Skinner, I woke up this morning feeling a little apprehensive, as I feel like every Giants fan should. Just heading into this offseason, heading into next year, not knowing what the team can be, and maybe having some expectations with Shane and Dable being better, Wink Martindale being the defense coordinator, but woke up feeling apprehensive because the Giants don't have a lot of money. We knew that they were going to make some sneaky under-the-radar moves, maybe not knowing all the positions that they were going to target, but we knew that this was going to be somewhat the approach. But my worry was, are we going to leave the offensive line all up to the NFL draft? Are we going to put all of our eggs in the basket of fixing the offensive line in the NFL draft? That's the thing I was worried about, and I'm going to put my head down on my pillow tonight, and that is not going to be my worry tonight. The quality of players that we got are a different story. But putting all of our eggs in the basket of fixing the offensive line in the NFL draft, that is not going to be the case this year, which I enjoy that. How are you?
I'm good. And again, they still have a huge, massive hole at right tackle, which won't be able to be filled in free agency.
Yeah, the line is not fixed.
No, definitely not. But, they're big pieces. I kind of view it the way I've, came away from the 2021 draft, where it's like, am I totally in love with the players that they have right now? It's like, no, I like Tony. It's a risky first round pick. Aziz is a good value in round 2. But I was like, they made smart moves with the trade back. And I think that's the way the Giants attacked day one. They made smart moves, and they're going to have some comp picks next year, it looks like, with some of the, the signings that went elsewhere. So we're going to get into it. We did got film breakdowns on these guys too that you guys can check out. So we've done our homework on these guys. Before we get into it and break down the Giants, even going back to how Blake Martinez cut, this episode was brought to you by some special people. Jacob Nason, which reminds me of Jacob Eason of the Colts. Jake Zelli. At first I thought it was just Zell, like the money company. Scott, you're okay with us. Bradford Decker, Black & Decker. He has the best drills you can find. Actually, I'm more of a DeWalt guy. Peter Kozma, Kyle Kuzma's younger brother. Benjamin Kelly, who I think Benjamin Kelly, he said he replied to one of my tweets saying "my guy."
Yeah. And
I just jokingly responded. I was like, "Don't you ever call me that again." And then I think he subscribed to Patreon 5 minutes later. He's like, so I think we appreciate each other's humor. Oh yeah, I think I was complaining about I was joking. I was complaining about the weather being a low of like 46, to kind of rub it into the Northeast face. And then
Sure.
Harrison Mayer, who's got great hair. Justin, who are these people? Let's go.
Patreon.com/Talking Giants, $2 a month plus some other tiers. You can hang out with us, watch shows live. Bobby Skinner will send you stickers, magnets in the mail, and you are entered into 2 shirt raffles per month. You get some other perks too. Patreon.com/Talking Giants. Thanks to our patrons. Let's talk about the Giants, since that is what we do.
The Giants signed offensive lineman Mark Glowinski, who will be 30 years old when the season starts. 3 years, $18.3 million, 6.1 average annual value, $11.4 million guaranteed. Essentially a 2-year deal. The third year would be $1.5 million of dead cap. His cap hit for 2022 is only $3.3 million. So, it's not counting, they're able to do this stuff before they go crazy and trade Bradbury or have to cut, some other guys possibly. Justin, him as a player, he's an average football. I think he's an average player, like an average to slightly above average. And that's what that contract is. When you look at the contracts around the league for guards, that's what that's what they're paying for. And that's what the Giants need right now. And pass pro, listen, he gives up ground. He gets depth, and he isn't going to hold up the grid against bull rush, but he sustains his blocks pretty well. He'll have some ugly reps when he's not playing that full head up man. But he's athletic. He can move really, really well. I think this is much more of an advantage as a signing in the run game. because you can use him in both gap and zone. Like when he pulls really well. He lands, he gets his hands and his helmet in the right spot every time. The outside zone, I mean, he moves really well to be able to flip his hips, and like that's why Colts and the 49ers and like some of those teams have really good run games. It's because they're able to do both. And again, he can work good movement on combos. He's going to be the starting right guard. Because Nick Gates is a TBD, he right now is the second best offensive lineman on the Giants, which isn't saying much, but we need those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the contract a little bit, how the cap hit is low for this year. It goes a little bit more higher in 2023, but this is basically a 2-year deal. And Dan Duggan kind of outlined that on Twitter, where 2024, the Giants basically can cut ties and not have a lot of dead cap associated with it. So this is basically a 2-year deal. And the way that Joe Schoen breaks down his contracts, and Dan Duggan also tweeted this out too, which I find this to be very interesting. Something that the Giants did not utilize with under Dave Gettleman is utilizing workout bonuses and then also per game bonuses. So, that's $600K that's basically laid out right there per year in a given contract, where $300K for a workout bonus, $300K for a per game bonus. Now, it's not $300,000 per game. I think that would add up to $17,000 per game. But that's just, again, a way that Joe Schoen can kind of, work that cap, where if a guy's going to miss time, due to injury, or if they don't want to show up to voluntary workouts, then that's less money the Giants have to pay. And it's also a good way, especially for those workout bonuses, it's a good way to get guys to show up to, those off-season programs, even if some of them are voluntary. So, Bobby, the thing that concerns me the most, and you kind of talked about it, and I want to get more of your opinion on it, is Glowinski's pass pro. We're going to feel good about him as a run block. We're going to feel good about him as a run blocker and his versatility that way. But his 2021 advanced stats, 2 sacks allowed, both of them versus Tennessee. I think he might have gotten the Simmons experience through that. 8 QB hits allowed, 1 QB hit from week 7 to 18, however, so that's pretty solid. But 38 pressures allowed. That's the big thing. Where over the course of his career, he's been all right in terms of allowing sacks and QB hits, but it's the pressures, and PFF usually does like to overestimate pressures, but it's the pressures that have been a problem with him. And he has a career 96.6 career pass blocking efficiency rating, which isn't great. And actually, his 2021 pass blocking efficiency from PFF was worse than Matt Skora and Will Hernandez. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't know how much the pass blocking efficiency stat works, but the way he gives up his pressure is very much like he's moving backwards. And again, I think not the Bills, calling ourselves the Bills right now because we're the Bills of New Jersey. But the way Bobby Johnson, they're going to want to slide more, which will help him in some of that, because he likes to get vertical. Instead of, some guards just that 1-2, like jumping at guys and popping them, he's going to get depth. And because he doesn't have like the greatest punch or whatever, or even the greatest strength, he will give up ground, where he'll sustain the block, but he will give up ground. And there'll be plays where, he'd be kind of not in the QB's lap, but right there.
Now you're saying that he's getting, he gets too vertical and he gives up depth, but, you talk about with Bobby Johnson as offensive line coach, how they're not going to be doing as much vertical sets. Does it apply as much on the inside? Let's revisit that for a second and how it relates to Glowinski.
It doesn't apply as much on the inside. It applies more so to the tackles. But it's going to be like half line slides where, it's, hey, you're responsible for the gap next to you. So you're taking that right step. If you're sliding right, you're taking that right step no matter what. So it does help him, but he's still, even then, he goes to the hop step a lot because he can be vulnerable to bull rushes. His handwork is all right. Nothing. It's not very good handwork, honestly. So he's vulnerable to bull rushes, so he's going to be kind of pushed back a little bit. It's not every rep is bad. Like, he sustains them, but I will say with him, like, if you look at Jon Feliciano, Jon Feliciano will have some great pass blocking reps, where Mark Glowinski, you don't have like those dominant pass blocking reps. They're good, they're sustainable, majority of the time, but like he doesn't have any dominant pass blocking reps, where it's like you're where we're clipping it on Monday afternoon and putting it on Twitter.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily something that the Giants are looking for. And, like you said with, the contract that they're signing Glowinski for, that's the kind of player that they're getting, where they are, you really look at this contract, especially it being a 2-year deal. It's a bargain player, but this is an above average, pretty solid run blocker. But then you could say maybe a little bit more below average pass blocker. And I think that's going to be fine, especially if Daniel Jones can continue to manipulate the pocket. If Daniel Jones is quarterback in 2022, if he can manipulate the pocket, I'm okay with that. If somebody's going to be allowing ground, and if somebody's going to be allowing depth, and if they're going to get pushed back a little bit, Daniel Jones is able to manipulate that pocket a little bit better. And as long as you're not letting somebody be a free rusher, cool, good, right?
Yeah, and he'll have like some bad reps, but they're not like the rookie Shane Lemieux where he's just getting swam off the line and then you got like a free rusher in his face, or the Will Hernandez ones, As far as stunt pickup, it wasn't like the greatest, but again, it wasn't like Will Hernandez where it's just like, man, how are you not seeing this type of stuff? It's like, oh, maybe it's a little slow to react, where Will Hernandez at times was like, well, you just didn't react to this stunt.
Do you think his feet are too wide?
No.
Okay, because I was watching your breakdown and I'm looking at it like, I feel like you're giving up depth here because maybe your feet are too wide. But
his stance is wide, but it gets to a decent level.
And how about this? So here's what I was thinking. Here's what I was thinking as it relates to giving up pressures but not giving up a lot of QB hits and sacks. Again, trying to relay the eye test with the stats. Ability to recover the hop step, which he does often. You pointed that out in your film breakdown. Ability to recover may be the sign that he gives up pressures but not QB hits and sacks. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's dead on.
Perfect. Okay.
So he'll slate in at right guard. He's 100% going to be a starter, obviously, with that contract and with his level of play. And again, this is the situation the Giants are in right now. Like this is what we went into free agency with, with our free agency plans, get a guard in that $5 to $8 million range, and you got him at the 6.1 average annual value. That's what we are looking for, and then obviously it's backloaded into the second year a little more than the first year.
Which is fine.
As far as the contract,
yeah,
and then not likely to be earned, or so like you mentioned, the per game bonuses. So he'll come in and start. It's a good start to help you in the draft. There's a good chance one of those tackles are at 5. I really do think that, and that was before today at free agency. And free agency with the Jags and the Jets made me feel a lot better about it. That Neal or Kwonu are going to be there, but you can't have that right tackle hole, which was not going to be filled in free agency. The right tackle hole was not going to be filled in free agency. There's no way, at least not a long-term solution. Maybe a 1-year stopgap Mike Remmers type, which would suck. But guard, it would have been weird. Okay, there's so many other needs on this team, and guard who maybe not have the greatest positional value, and you have an edge who you like just as much as Kenyon Green or whatnot. You would rather take the edge, but the Giants have you can't have those huge needs, and right now, with talk about Jon Feliciano, they don't have that glaring we have to get a guard on round 1, round 2. Still would like to see one maybe in round 3, or 8. And still, if they trade back, I'm still banging on the table for Kenyon Green or Zion Johnson, regardless of, which one's there. I'm banging. I'm okay, this is the time to do that. If there was a Kenyon Green versus David Ojabo thing, that would be tough for me.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys prevents you from doing anything, which makes me happy, number one, that the Giants didn't overpay for an offensive lineman, a player here or there, right? That makes me happy, but it also makes me happy that the Giants acknowledge these positions, and again, that we're not just banking on the NFL draft, because the board could go for the first 5 picks, Bobby, for the first 4 picks. It could go, Kwonu and Neal are both gone. It could go that way. We're hoping that it's not as Giants fans, but it could, and then you double up defensive or you trade back, whatever, and then you're in the ultimate doomsday disaster scenario of oh shit, what are we going to do with this offensive line? And we are panicking draft day. At least now, it's you know what? If we don't grab a guard, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not preferred. There's a lot of good quality guards, day 2 and 3, even outside of Zion Johnson, Kenyon Greens of the world, Tyler Linderbaum's. But we're not panicking oh crap, what are we going to do? We are doomed. We're done. So that's why both of these moves make me feel good.
All right, you want to talk about the next signing?
Yeah, well, also one final note: Glowinski has a great beard, fantastic beard, out of control. It's
Great beard.
unhinged. And a fun fact
Sign
that
of a
relates
good
to the
offensive
Giants. And a fun fact that relates to the Giants. 2017, Giants played the Seahawks, and shout out to Patreon member Eli Bittner who sent me this video. Giants played the Seahawks 2017. Glowinski hits Snacks Harrison a little too late in the play. Snacks Harrison kind of flops, but also falls down. Glowinski gets a 15-yard penalty 2017, and that is your Mark Glowinski Giants connection in history.
That was a big-time flop by Snacks Harrison.
I mean, it was also a pretty big hit. I was like, the announcer said it was a flop. I actually thought it was a legit hit. He got hit kind of hard.
Don't be a B word, Snacks. And that goes to both Snacks in our lives.
Yep.
All right, Giants signed. Now, we don't know the numbers on this contract yet, but it is a 1-year deal. They signed Jon Feliciano from the Bills, 6'4", 325 pounds, 30 years old. So both these guys will be 30 years old when the season starts. I think John's like 70 days older than Glowinski. Out of Miami, by the way, which I love.
Ooh.
Justin, what I thought was most interesting, and we'll talk about him as a player and break him down as a player, is it was immediately to play center. Like, it was like to play center. And again, he's got center guard versatility, but he played guard for the Bills. Like, it was immediately like, oh, he's going to play center. And that, to me, signals they are kind of slating him in as the starter, which I guess we could talk about that conversation. But as far as Feliciano as a player, like, he's strong. He gets natural movement. Like, he'll have, like, in the pass game, like, he'll have some really awesome reps, but he doesn't have the same athleticism that Mark Glowinski has, where there'll be times where he'll get beat to a spot, and he'll get, his guy will be washed around the edge, or will beat him around the corner. But his feet are pretty slow. His handwork is all right, but like, he's a decent pass blocker. I would think there's times where I think he's a better pass blocker than Mark. I do think he's a better pass blocker than Mark Glowinski. Even though, again, like, he isn't the same athlete. And then in the run game, he's strong. He gets natural movement, but again, like, he doesn't fit exactly the wide zone. Pull. They pulled him, but like, he's not the greatest puller. To be honest, he kind of reminds me of like a better, like a good version of Will Hernandez, if that makes sense. Where like maybe I should reword that, but he's kind of got like Will Hernandez's skill set.
Okay.
Which got you excited about Will Hernandez in the draft pick, but Will Hernandez didn't put it together. Like, he's kind of like, as far as like athleticism, he's kind of got the Will Hernandez skill set. And then we talked with our Bills guys, like, he's a really high IQ guy who, is good at calling out protections, and you see it with the Bills, like, good communication with the center. That being said, I don't know if he should 100% be slated in as a starter, especially the fact that they are saying he's going to play center. Yeah,
that was kind of strange, and maybe that was an agency thing. I have a feeling that was an agency and a player thing, because the first thing that Feliciano tweeted out that he was signed to the Giants is, I know centers that get I played next to centers that got like $11 million. That was his first tweet. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I guess you got a chip on your shoulder. You want to play here. You want to be good. You want to get more money because this is a 1-year deal. So that's my guess, but it was kind of weird. Like, you're center. Like, this, they signed him to play center. They didn't just sign an offensive lineman. They signed this guy to play center. So I did think that was a little strange.
Well, and he should be much better than Billy Price, if he is starting at center.
Anyone that they bring in should be better than what they had last year.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, we're not saying the bar is super high. But you know what? It's about improving, and we're not going to. We never thought the offensive line was going to be fixed overnight, regardless. Yeah. I almost want to go and ask Nick Gates, like, what is the plan for you this year? And maybe we'll have some answers. I hope we don't have an answer, to be honest, this week, because when I watched both of those guys, Nick Gates is clearly better. And again, we don't know what Nick Gates is going to be like post-injury. But if Nick Gates is close to what he was, I want Nick Gates playing center. Like, I don't want to move him back to guard. I want him to play center. If he could play guard, fine. But I would like him playing center. But it seems like from the fact that they are saying that Feliciano is going to play center, it's like, okay, he played under Bobby Johnson with the Raiders and the Bills, obviously understanding the offense. It seems like that's more of like, okay, this is how we're going to, like get communication down and right without having to put all our eggs in the Nick Gates basket. Like that's what that seems like to me.
I watched the 2020 game where he started at center against the Cardinals, and he had 4 games at which he started at center since 2019. Versus Tennessee 2019, 0 sacks, 0 hits, 1 pressure. Versus Denver 2019, 0 sacks, 0 QB hits allowed, 1 pressure. Versus Seattle 2020, 0 sacks, 0 QB hits, 4 pressures. Versus Arizona 2020, 0 sacks, 0 hits, 1 pressure. Still watched it, and I don't want the Giants to pencil in right now Feliciano as the starter. I do not want that. If it happens, and if it's gotta happen, great. Like, I'll be okay with it, and let's see how the draft board falls, especially in days 2 and 3. But I do not want the Giants to pencil in right now Jon Feliciano as the starter. I don't want that, especially because it's only a 1-year deal.
Yeah, and he's dealt with injuries. Now I was talking to Anthony, and he had COVID, and then when he came back, they just made no effort to bring him back into the starting, like he was the starting guard.
Yeah. The line gelled better without him, and yeah,
which I would assume meant playing more zone schemes, and obviously Feliciano's deficiencies with athleticism would show up in that point more. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want them to pencil it in. I think he can be good depth. Or play him at guard,
Yeah.
Like, play him at guard if you need. Like, you got Mark Glowinski. Let him battle with Shane Lemieux or Nick Gates. Like, there's got to be some type of battle between those 3. Like, Nick Gates expects to be back next year and playing. Like, maybe he's being unrealistic, but like, there's that injury was ugly. But it was from coming out of those surgeries, it was the best case scenario for a horrible situation. Like, he's working out. Like, I think there's a good chance that he's playing week 1. I don't know if he'll be the exact same player, but I think that should be there. And Shane Lemieux is a player worth letting battle for a spot at the moment right now. Like, kind of let Lemieux and Feliciano battle for that spot, because you got your interior offensive line right now is Feliciano, Nick Gates, Shane Lemieux, Ben Bredeson. Those are your 4 guys. Ben Bredeson, I'm kind of out on you. You can be a backup. Hopefully you can be a good backup. And that leaves Shane Lemieux, Nick Gates, and Feliciano going into the draft or going into day 2 of free agency. Maybe they add somebody else. And I feel like it kind of should be a best man wins out of those situations. But I also understand the point of view of like, hey, this is a new regime. Nick Gates does have a broken leg. Shane Lemieux hasn't proven anything in the NFL. And they're a guy they're comfortable with, who Bobby Johnson's worked with under the Raiders and the Bills, who is known for understanding protections and setting stuff and being a good communicator, a good locker room guy, being like, he's going to be the starting center. And Nick Gates, if you can come back, you'll be a guard. I do understand it from that point of view.
Yeah, and it's all going to have to depend on, especially how the draft board falls. I'm not going to criticize free agency. Why didn't you bring that guy in? Why didn't you bring this guy in? But if we're in the middle rounds of the draft, and like a Parham, Dylan Parham is on the board from Kentucky, right? There's also there's another interior old lineman, Luke Fortner from Kentucky. There's they got three interior offensive linemen there at Kentucky. I know one's going to go a little bit higher than the rest, but if we're looking at the draft and the Giants are up and those guys are, we're at a point where they could be taken and the Giants don't take them, I'll be like, well, maybe a missed opportunity. So this is really going to have to be like a wait and see kind of situation of how the Giants address the offensive line and, where they go. But I do not want the Giants to just pencil in right now. Like I said, if it winds up happening and those guys are off the board or it doesn't make sense to take a guy here, cool. Feliciano, you could start this year 1 year. But if they're just penciling it in right now, not happy with that.
Oh, yeah, if you're talking about like attacking the top of the draft. Okay, that makes more sense. And again, if they draft someone in the 3rd or 4th round, it also takes a lot of pressure off those guys. So like, hey, you don't have to come in and start right away.
Yes. Which that's also the thing with you're putting all of your efforts into fixing the offensive line in the NFL draft. Well, then we have Shane Lemieux starting in his rookie year as a 5th round pick, and he's not ready to do so. So we also want to avoid those situations too.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because there is new additions. They're losing Billy Price, Will Hernandez. Assume those guys both are. I mean, I think it's safe to say Billy Price isn't back now that they signed Feliciano. Will Hernandez, I think it's safe to say he's not back either. Even though they could bring him back, I'm on the minimum. But with Ben Bredesen and Shane Lemieux, it doesn't make as much sense.
Somebody had a really funny tweet today. Buccaneers signed Will Hernandez for a 5-year, $200 million contract. And I laughed.
Actually, they changed their account to, it was actually Switty Boy, changed his account to the My Football or My Sports Update guy, and Will Hernandez signing with the Bucs, and I was like, oh my gosh! And then I looked at it for half a second. I was like, oh, that's not happening.
Gotcha.
So right now, starting offensive line: Andrew Thomas left tackle, Mark Glowinski right guard, right tackle. Who are you saying? Matt Peart or Matt Gano?
Oh, right now, Gano.
Me too.
Yeah.
Center:
Feliciano or Gates? Yeah, I mean it's Feliciano right now. I mean, I'm sorry, we're
left guard.
We're rooting for Nick Gates, but left guard.
Nick
Who are
Gates,
the options?
Shane Lemieux, Ben
Lemieux
Bredesen.
and
Gates, Lemieux, Bredesen.
Lemieux.
I would say Gates.
Okay. You optimist.
I mean, he's not battling Quentin Nelson. He's battling Shane Lemieux, who's also
I'm saying I think Nick Gates has more of an injury obstacle than a competition obstacle.
I guess we'll see. We need to get some concrete information on what Nick Gates is going to be like for training camp and stuff, because I'm so tired of talking about it. I hate talking about hypotheticals like this. All right, Justin, read the DraftKings ad and we'll move on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This Wednesday, I cannot wait for Rutgers. God willing, the Giants don't make any moves and we don't have to record, because I want to go to Rutgers and I want to watch the playing game against Notre Dame. And you can get part of the action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Join the action on the court during the biggest tournament of the year with DraftKings Sportsbook. Turn your team's victory into your own big win. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win. Get $200 in free bets. If they do, it's that simple. If they win, you win. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you could still join in on the college hoops action with DraftKings Pools. Everyone can play free pools all March long for a shot at a share of over $250,000 in prizes. Simply join a pool and answer questions like, who will make it to the next round? Rutgers. Who will hit the most three-pointers? Point guard on Rutgers. Then track your results. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY, $5 on any college hoops team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code JOHNBOY this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 plus. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Rutgers is back. So it's like in New Brunswick. I think it's called On the Green, or is that Morristown? No clue. But there's an area where there's a big TV, and it's right by some food spots in Rutgers, and all the students go and watch it together. So our friends, that's what we did last March, and Rutgers won a few games, and it was electric. It was awesome. So we're going again. Wednesday, 9 p.m. That's where I'll be, New Brunswick. Come join me.
I kind of hate the play-in game because it's like when I'm picking my bracket, I'd like to know who's representing that side.
Yeah, that's tough. But Rutgers is going to win, and then they're going to play Friday again against Alabama.
Beat Alabama. Roll Tide. All right, quick, one more signing that happened, then we'll talk about some of the current Giants, or used to be current Giants. Former Giants, I guess that would be the word for it. Giants signed wide receiver Robert Foster, who came in with the Bills in 2018 as a UDFA. 6'2", 196. He had a good rookie year. 27 catches, 541 yards, 3 touchdowns, 61%. And that, again, Josh Allen wasn't lighting it up that year. He was kind of an average player. You look at, he was a big play machine. And catching it on a 61.4% rate. It was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I was talking to our Bills guys, and they're like, man, we thought he was going to be a wide receiver too. And then just kind of got phased out, where he had 3 catches in 2019 on a 16% catch rate, which is unreal. That's horrible. And then went and had 2 catches for Washington, and then spent this past year with the Dallas practice squad. I mean, this guy is being brought into battle for the bottom of the roster. where if it, maybe he makes you feel a little bit better if they were to move on from Slayton. But at the end of the day, this guy's made it. He's coming into battle in camp. Like I don't. This shouldn't be like this gives us flexibility to move on from Darius Slayton. This is the end of the roster spot.
No. The advanced numbers from 2018 are good. 20 first downs on 27 catches, 20 yards per reception, and when you include that his average depth of target is like 20 yards down the field too, he had 6.2 yards after the catch per reception. That's a lot for a guy that's targeted deep down the field. Usually don't see that. You usually see a lot of the high yak guys, they're targeted in the intermediate part of the field. The guys that are targeted deep, they don't have a lot of yak. Obviously not a big sample size. The only issue, Bobby, with all this is that he's had 24 catches and 5 first downs since 2018. And you even look at his time in Alabama, which the little
4 targets and 5 catches.
What was that?
24 targets and 5 catches.
Well, wrote that? Well, no, I said 24 catches on 5 first downs. That's what I have. Did I get that wrong?
He's only had 5 catches the last 3 years.
Oh, wow. Really must have gotten that wrong. My bad. And important to note, though, I guess, he was with Brian Daboll in 2017. He was a senior at Alabama in 2017. Brian Daboll was the offense coordinator. So I thought, maybe how was he used at Alabama? Was he somewhat of like a prospect coming out? And no, he had 14 catches for 174 yards and 1 touchdown. 2017, his senior year, and he barely has more pro catches than he did at Alabama through 4 years. So part of me thinks that maybe he's not even an NFL player without Brian Daboll.
Yeah, he's he was on the Cowboys practice squad. This is kind of if it turns into something, wow, awesome, hell of a story. But I wouldn't bet on it. I think he should have. He's a big play machine in 2018. And that was with not as good Josh Allen and Matt Barkley throwing the ball.
But it just seemed like that injury kind of did something because he just hasn't played.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Robert Foster, but don't put too many eggs in that Robert Foster basket. Blake Martinez took a pay cut, and I was surprised by this. And you could say it's for family or whatever, but like getting Blake Martinez to take, he would have saved $8 million, and they saved $6 million now with the pay cut. Like Blake Martinez is a good player. The fact that he didn't want to go and test free agency, I know he's coming off an ACL injury, but again, it's like ACL injuries happen every single year. I was surprised, and that is kind of important. That would have been a huge, out of tight end. They have no tight ends. They have no nose tackles. There's so many holes on this team to go into the year with. Our inside linebackers right now are Tay Crowder going the free agency with Tay Crowder and Carter Coughlin. Carter Coughlin would be if they cut Blake Martinez would be our number 2 inside linebacker right now. And I know things change, but going into free agency in the draft with all these holes, it's like you got to put people on the roster. So to be able to get Blake to take that pay cut, have the $6 million of savings, that's a huge, huge win for Joe Schoen. The Shepard one was okay, this is a huge win for Joe Schoen.
Yeah, I agree. Because also you may have Wink Martindale putting interior linebackers in some sticky situations, similar to what he was asked in Green Bay, which I hope that doesn't totally happen, but that may happen where you're taking a lot of linebackers off the field, or at least inside linebackers, those off-ball linebackers you're taking off the field, and then Blake Martinez is going to be it, and he fit that role in Green Bay. So I would like a veteran to be there. So I think you add it all up. Shepard's cap hit, and this is from Tom Rock. Shepard's cap hit went from $12.4 million to about $6.5 million. Martinez's cap hit went from about $14 million to $8 million. So $12 million they save on both of those moves. Over the cap had the Giants at $6.7 million in the red before accounting for the $12 million that they saved. So I guess before today's moves, they had about $5.3 million in cap space.
And again, the official league year doesn't start until Wednesday, so they still can move stuff around, and maybe Bradbury is gone. But again, I don't know what Feliciano's contract's going to be. I really don't. But you could look at it and say, okay, they have both those guys, and they're still technically under the cap. If it was less than, if it's less than $3 million for Jon Feliciano.
Yeah, if Glowinski got his cap hit is $3.35 million this year. Now 2023 takes a jump up. It's at $7.75 million. But I do not think Feliciano should be getting much more than Glowinski, if he should even be getting more at all this year, because it's a one-year deal, but I don't think he should be getting much more than $3.35 million. Is he even worth that much?
No, I don't think he is.
Yeah, because Glowinski's a better player, so.
Yeah, so I do think that's debatable, to be honest. But Glowinski can do more things. He's definitely more scheme versatile. And then obviously doesn't have the injury issues that Feliciano has. So like credit to Blake.
Yes.
Like I'm excited to have Blake Martinez back and to be able to work with Tay Crowder and they get a second inside linebacker. Like losing Blake Martinez was a huge loss for the Giants, and it really was the main reason their run defense struggled. Like he was a huge reason why the Giants' run defense struggled. Like their run defense was pretty damn bad this year. And part of it was by design by Patrick Graham inviting teams to run the ball against them. But like with Blake Martinez, you can invite people to run the ball against you and also not be giving up big gains. Where with Tay Crowder as your Mike linebacker and Ragland as your will, you are going to be giving up those big gains. Like keeping Blake Martinez, he's improved a lot in coverage, which he'll be asked to do with the Ravens or with Wink Martindale. I got to stop calling people's names by their former team, where it's just like Brian and Dave, Bobby Johnson is the Bills and Wink Martindale is the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, that's huge because I think sometimes we forget when you cut people, you got to replace them. So it's like, okay, you save $8 million by cutting Blake Martinez. Well, not really, because you got to spend at least $1 million on replacing that guy and possibly more. So again, like it's almost like a wash.
Yeah.
When you look at it.
What did you think of Patrick Queen as a blitzer coming out of LSU?
I liked it, but Patrick Queen has not been good for the Ravens.
Patrick Queen had 3 sacks, 10 QB hits in 2020. Sheesh. 2 sacks, 3 QB hits. Blake Martinez, I'm excited for him as a blitzer. I mean, that's my moral of the story, because I think that was one of Blake's strengths coming from Green Bay.
They put him in the A gap a lot with Green Bay on blitzing down, passing downs, and he did well. Patrick Graham never really did that with him.
And I think
very rarely did it.
And I think Wink's going to do that more, right?
Yes, he was definitely going to do that.
So Blake Martinez's best pass rushing year was 5 sacks, 6 QB hits in 2018. He also had 3 sacks and 6 QB hits in 2020 with Patrick Graham. And I wouldn't be surprised if the QB hit number, I don't know what the sack is because sacks are tough to predict, but I wouldn't be surprised if this year the QB hit number creeps up towards 10 and it's a career year for Blake Martinez and QB hits, because that's what Wink Martindale's going to do. Send these guys to blitz.
All right, we got some other stuff we got to talk about. Before that, SeatGeek. Today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. Live events are back, which means you can get $20 off tickets at SeatGeek with promo code GIANTS. So, Kyrie Irving, if you're trying to go to a Nets game because of this stupid-ass law, you can get $20 off it with SeatGeek promo code GIANTS if you're listening, Kyrie. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. We've got the app on our phones. Again, I was supposed to be going to a Nets Magic game tonight, but again, it's free agency. I respect the grind too much. It'd be really nice if maybe towards the season's ending that SeatGeek maybe send me to an Orlando Magic game in a suite. The tickets are so cheap, SeatGeek. Look at it, please. I'm begging you, send me to an Orlando Magic game. Whether it's football, concerts, basketball, baseball, festivals, or more, SeatGeek puts tickets from all over the web in one place to make buying simple. SeatGeek rates every ticket from 0 to 10 to make sure you are getting a good deal. Green mean good, red mean bad. Simple as that. Even a caveman can freaking do it. Every ticket on SeatGeek is backed by their buyer guarantee, so you can shop for tickets with confidence. Don't worry, we've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code GIANTS. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. I'm just been waiting for the Knicks to beat the Nets. It's been 775 days, but they just never do, Justin.
Well, I mean, you're a Net fan. Why would you wait for that?
I'm waiting for it to happen on Twitter because it's like, okay, let me get for like all in my mentions, but I'm like, I've been bracing for that, and it just never happens.
Kyrie Irving definitely also listens to the show, and I'm currently looking on SeatGeek for NASCAR tickets for when we go to Charlotte for Memorial Day weekend.
How about that? We got to make that more official for people to make their plans.
Yes.
Maybe that's something we could do this week or next week. The Giants cut Kaden Smith with a failed physical designation.
Oh.
So the injury that he had, I guess, was a lot more serious than was reported on at the time, and that makes sense. But I'll never not be frustrated by Kaden Smith's career as a Giant. I never won't be. Like, he put up real production as a rookie in 2019. And again, that was after in-season waiver pickup. And he came in and fit in well. It was a good security blanket for Daniel Jones. Even had some big plays. Like, I bet you his 2019 had more 20-plus yard catches than Evan Ingram this season. Like, I almost can guarantee that when I'm playing it through my head. And they don't trade Evan Ingram ever. And they signed old ass Kyle Rudolph. Like, it was just so stupid the way this team handled Kaden Smith. And again, it's not talking about this moving individually because there is injury in it now, but it's just frustrating. I'm hoping for the best for Kaden because the Giants totally mismanaged him as a player.
Yeah, it's stupid the way the Giants handled Kyle Rudolph. It's stupid the way the Giants handled Evan Ingram, and it's stupid the way that they handled Kaden Smith. By not playing arguably the best all-around tight end, and definitely not even arguably the tight end that had the most chemistry with Daniel Jones. So yeah, it's tough. Now the Giants. Let's go over the Giants tight ends that are on the roster currently, Bobby.
Chris Myrick, Jake Hausman, and Ryson John.
That's quite the crew.
Chris Myrick, tight end 1. Coming off of a Super Bowl run. Didn't win it, but you almost did, Chris Myrick. Yeah, it's just frustrating, and again, it sucks that it's ending with an injury, so I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of his career, but like, definitely appreciative of Kaden Smith's 3-year with the New York Giants. Like, he was a big part of the run game in 2020, which, by the way, he caught 18 passes in 2020. Justin, how many targets did he have?
20.
18.
Oh, 100% catch rate, huh?
Yeah. Just frustrating the way Kaden Smith was used the past 2 years. So now do you want to talk about players that have left the Giants?
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to clean up before we get into that?
No, now I'm getting a little anxious about what the hell we're doing in the tight end room, but
yeah, we got some serious holes to fill. And offensive line is obviously the one that's on in people's minds, which is because it's the most important. But like, they have really essentially no tight ends on the roster. They have no nose tackle on the roster. They've got serious holes to fill right now. And one of those because Evan Ingram left for the Jaguars on a 1-year, $9 million deal that could be $10 million deal. Can I say, I thought I would actually have some, like, I would miss a little bit of Evan Ingram because he'd been here for 5 years, and no matter how, like, you just get some type of, like, emotional connection with a player who's been on your team for that long. I don't. I really don't miss Evan Ingram. He's a bad football player, and it's more than just the drops. He's not a good route runner. He has a horrible feel for sitting in zone coverages. The drops are a big part of it, and then he's coming off of his worst year statistically wise. Like, he had his career worst in every statistical category this year, essentially, except for catch rate. And that's coming off of a 2020 season that was a disaster, which is crazy that these guys, you'd be a first-round pick and run fast, and it's like that just sticks with you, that you're going to get this contract still for Evan Ingram. But I honestly don't miss him at all. Like, I think he's a bad player. Think he's an awesome guy who works hard, and can't believe he kind of picked, like didn't ever lose it on Giants fans or Giants media. But I'm not missing Evan Ingram at all. He's not a good football player.
So this is something that I kind of discussed with, Research Rick a little bit. I view this as a gamble for Evan Ingram. Kind of like 1-year deal. I know 9 of it is guaranteed and he can get up to 10. And, him getting a $9 million contract guaranteed, that's good for Evan Ingram. But also, I think the name of the game in the NFL is kind of getting a little bit more long-term security. And especially because he's going to an unstable situation that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you view the Evan Ingram contract as a gamble on himself, the 1-year deal, or do you view it as good for Evan Ingram getting all that guaranteed money? I view it as a gamble.
I don't, because look at what the last 2 years were. The 2020 was a disaster. A disaster year for Evan Ingram. Literally everything that could have went wrong for Evan Ingram, whether it was the interceptions or the fumbles. And then he topped that off with his worst statistical category year. And there's times where they needed him, and he didn't do much. That's awesome. He had a nice catch versus the Raiders. Whip the freaking do. Kaden Smith had a nice catch versus the Patriots in the preseason. That was a better catch than what Evan Ingram did versus the Raiders. It's like, and he just got this deal, and so he's gonna go with the Jaguars. He will play better with the Jaguars. But like he's got this former first round pick who's really fast tag on him, and no one's gonna pay attention super close to what he's doing in Jacksonville unless he does really well. So like I don't think it's that risky at all, because look at what he just came off of in the contract he got.
Well, I think it's risky.
Yeah,
because
it's a
it's only
1 year deal,
year.
but a 3 year deal is essentially a 2 year deal, regardless. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I was done having this is the breakout year for Evan Ingram conversation.
He's not a good player.
I was done. Was I even that high on him? And I don't know if I gotta re-listen maybe to the PPP that we did heading into the 2020 season. Maybe I was excited for him, but it's also like, it's gonna be weird not seeing him at tight end. How about that? I don't know if I'm gonna miss him, but I was thinking about thinking of another Giants tight end not wearing number 88, because it's been the last 4 years, so that'll be interesting.
5 years.
5 years. Yeah, I guess 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah.
Only Reese picks left on the team are Sterling Shepard and Davis Webb. You can't count Davis Webb. I know, it's a joke. All right. Yeah, so I'm not going to miss him. The Jaguars, by the way, are dumb as shit with the signings they've been making. Like moronic signings that they've been making. Like Evan Ingram was like the third worst signing they made today. It looks like way better than the Christian Kirk. I don't think I've ever seen a dumber contract than the Christian Kirk contract. Like, I think Matt Flynn was more justifiable than that Christian Kirk contract.
Who's stopping an offense of Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and trying to think of one other person that they paid today?
Zay Jones. They gave Zay Jones like $10 million a year.
Zay Jones. Oh, great. Who's stopping that offense? You want to know what it is? It's really the band of misfits. It's the band of fantasy football misfits that people choose to break out every single year. That's really what it is.
That is what it is. You need to turn that into a tweet. Austin Johnson, our nose tackle, who had a really good season. The first half of the season was putting up some nice, box score stats. The second half of the season wasn't as flashy, but still was a good player. He signed with the Chargers for 2 years, $14 million. That's a big hole. Nose tackle's a hole. Obviously, Danny Shelton was a free agent, but he was a hole regardless. He sucked. Nose tackle, I feel like that has to be addressed in free agency, right? Too, not necessarily you're putting all the but there should come out of free agency with a nose tackle.
Yeah, because again, do you want to put all your eggs in a basket where you have to get a nose tackle? My guy John Ridgeway, out of Arkansas, Senior Bowl guy. He's going to be a giant.
Hey, I'm a Neil Farrell Jr. stan, but you can't just go into the draft being like, we're going to get Neil Farrell Jr.
Yeah, because
especially with all the other holes on this team.
You're putting yourself in a very tough situation if you do that. So, yeah, Austin Johnson was most improved player from you could say on both sides of the ball, most improved player from 2020 to 2021. Definitely production wise, everything went up over 100%. So, yeah, good for Austin Johnson. 2 year, $14 million. We thought that we overpaid for him last year. I guess we didn't. And I guess maybe the Chargers overpaid for him this year, but, cap's going up. Everybody's paying more. All these players are getting money, so maybe Austin Johnson, how do you like this? Austin Johnson replacing Linville Joseph, also previous Giant, at the Chargers.
Chargers front four is going to be pretty nice. They signed Sebastian Day Joseph, who was a former Rutgers guy.
I think the Giants were also looking into him, according to Ryan Dunleavy.
He got a pretty big contract. So nose tackle is a big hole that has to be filled. I would expect a nose tackle signed in the next 4 to 5 days. Keon Crossan, I was blown away at this contract. He got from the Dolphins, what was it, 3 years, $10.5 million?
3 years, $10.5 million, and he negotiated his own contract, so he gets to pocket all that.
That was wild. Like, I know he is a really good special team player, but for him to get 3 years, $10.5 million, like, who was his connection on the Miami Dolphins to get that contract?
What's
like,
up with all these Florida teams overpaying when there's no state tax to begin with?
Still, I don't care how many state tax there is. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I was blown away at that contract. And there's another contract I want to talk about that I was blown away at. But that's like a huge part. Like, that's a huge part in the comp pick formula. You know?
Yes.
Like, I'm excited for the comp picks we get.
Quick note, because Keon Crosson's special teamer, Giants also brought back CJ Board today. So we forgot about that.
I like my special teamers to be able to play offense or defense, and CJ Board can do that. So he's the type of special teamer I like.
What was it, a 37-yarder, 38-yarder against the Falcons week 3? CJ Board catches that. 42? Wow, look at that. CJ Board catches that ball on the side, and it was a 3rd and 4, by the way, because that's the only time that the Giants would ever try and just throw the ball down the field on a 3rd down. Let's just see if it works. They're not going to go for it on 4th down. Why would they ever do that? So it was a 3rd and 4. CJ Board catches a 42-yard pass, and I'm thinking, yes, we're going to capitalize off of the Washington football team momentum that we got Thursday night after scoring 29 points. And no, that was the only time that we threw the ball 20-plus yards down the field that game. Welcome back, CJ Board. That was a very scary arm fracture injury that he had last year. Like, I was in the stands, and I was like, that was a big hit. I hope he's all right. So, he's back.
CJ Board is back.
Comp picks.
Isn't really... Yeah, talk about comp picks.
So, this is Nick Cordy. I don't know really... I think he does stuff for Over the Cap. He seems to have a good grasp on...
Probably pronounced Corte, but I don't know.
Sure. Nick Corte. That would
you think it's Cordy?
That's a really good last name. Nope, don't think so. So, this was after the Keon Crossan signing and after the Giants signed Mark Glowinski. Because remember, Jon Feliciano, that does not count against the comp pick formula. Even if the up to ends up being counted as lower for compensatory pick formula purposes, don't know what the first half of that sentence means. As it stands now, the Giants should have either a 5th rounder open because of Evan Ingram or 6th rounder because of Austin Johnson, depending on which round Mark Glowinski's contract is valued at. So I'm guessing the Colts also had something on Mark Glowinski. So then it depends on what his contract is, and then whatever that is, it'll balance out. If it's a 6th rounder, then we get the 5th rounder with Evan Ingram as it stands, and if it's a 5th rounder, then we'll get the Austin Johnson 6th rounder. So, not great. We could have easily traded Evan Ingram and got a 4th rounder at least, I feel, before the 2021 season.
Yes, teams valued Evan Ingram, which is, again, we just had that conversation. But I love comp picks, so I'm excited to whenever those are announced in 2023. Like, I do love comp picks.
And then still...
I just got 4 in 2020. That was fun.
And then still we got Jabril Peppers, Will Hernandez, Lorenzo Carter that could possibly get deals. And, I mean, it also does depend on how many more free agents the Giants sign. If the Giants keep signing free agents and, you know, those guys are going to get deals somewhere. But if they keep signing guys, then does the comp pick formula balance out and we lose picks? So we'll have to see. But those guys are probably going to get deals, and Giants may get more comp picks.
And hey, Tay Crowder is on this team because of a comp pick. They had 3 comp pick 7th rounders that year.
Oh.
Tay Crowder's on this team because of a comp pick. So I love comp picks. You know, it's the more darts you get. Simple as that.
Draft is a lot.
Before we end, did you see BJ Hill got 3 years, $30 million?
That's what PFF was projecting him to get.
That is insane. I have a tweet that I have scheduled for tomorrow morning, so people probably have seen it. I'm going to... The 2000... Hold on. Unsent tweets. Scheduled. The 2020 Giants defensive tackles current contracts average annual value. Leonard Williams, 21 mil. Dalvin, 10.5. BJ Hill, 10 mil. Austin Johnson, 7 mil. And then Dexter Lawrence at 3.3 mil on his rookie deal. That was the greatest defensive tackle group of all time, Justin.
It was what did you just say?
The greatest defensive tackle group of all time. Think about how they had that defensive tackle group had. Remember, we went on our position review. They had more sacks than like 8 teams did on their own.
Really?
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong on that number, but they had more sacks than teams, like that defensive tackle group had more sacks than some teams did as a whole.
Yeah, because that was Leo's big insane year. So yeah.
I mean, Leo had 11. Like I think they ended up at like 22 sacks as a team.
Okay.
How did BJ Hill get $10 million a year? I wish we could have BJ Hill for the comp pick formula.
Yeah, wish that worked out. But no, but I mean, there was a tweet that I saw today that there was only like, I'm going to be getting the number wrong. There was only like X amount of teams last offseason that paid more than $175 million in free agents. I think that is the number. But now teams have already cleared that. Teams like the Jaguars just cleared it like in one day. So, I think the Giants were one of those teams last year to spend a lot of money, but not a lot of other teams did, because a lot of those teams think they planned on this offseason being the offseason that they were going to spend, because the cap increased this year, and then it's going to skyrocket even more when Amazon gets in here, and you're seeing that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, they're moving around, and Amazon's hiring people for Thursday Night Football and whatnot. So the more money the NFL is going to make, the more the salary cap's going to go up, and that's what I think the league is doing. The
Giants should pick up Dexter Lawrence's fifth-year option, which we don't need to get into this deep, but like a week ago I said they shouldn't. Now that I'm seeing these defensive tackle contracts, they absolutely should pick up his option for 10.5 mil. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it buys you another year. That's what it really does.
Yeah. And he's a better player than BJ Hill and Austin Johnson, and like, so they definitely should pick up Dexter Lawrence's option now. So
yeah, I agree.
Where a week ago I would have said no. When you look at like the guys make it, it's like, well, it's like you could probably extend him for a little less than that. Now it's like, no, you probably won't be able to. So
yep.
All right. Anything else?
No. Excited for whatever comes next, whether it's nothing, or if it's little incy-bitsy moves. There's got to be more cap space that's created, so we'll see how that happens.
Something's going to happen with James Bradbury.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen with James Bradbury, and that's why we didn't talk much about it, because something's going to happen. So we appreciate you guys. We'll probably see you on Friday, unless there's some huge blockbuster move. But we'll have film breakdowns out of all these guys. Check those out on the channel. We'll see you on Friday. Enjoy free agency. Until then, let's go Big Blue.